Packers fans out here to stay. Cheeseheads green and gold all day. Jordan Love lead us to the bay. Every game we find a way. Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know. Green and gold gonna glow. Lambeau Field, our sacred ground. Feel the vibe, hear the sound. Packers fans so loud and proud. Jordan Love, he's wearing the crown. Lambeau Field, our sacred ground. Feel the vibe, hear the sound. Packers fans so loud and proud. Jordan Love, he's wearing the crown.
All right. Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition Podcast. Today we continue our pre-draft 2026 pre-draft pre-positional preview pods with the O-line, and today we have Brian Maffei on. Brian, thank you for joining us again for our annual go around. Unfortunately, you're not corners this year. You're doing O-line, but a position of flux for the Packers this season. Thanks for coming on the show again.
Yeah, of course. You had a lot of P's there. You had to say a minute ago.
Too many PPs. So we'll go through our usual format for this one. So in review, the Packers O-line, which was looked at as probably should have been a position of strength, or what was hoped to be a position of strength, ended up being a massive disappointment. You know, some people say massive is overputting it, but I think honestly, with how much they invested in the group, you know, the both in terms of draft capital and money spent in the 2025 offseason, it was pretty big letdown, you know, partly due to injuries, partly due to poor performance. The list goes on. And honestly, I believe it was one of the things that sank the Packers in the playoff game. But, you know, it's time to refresh. There's going to be at least 2 new faces in the starting group, possibly 3, depending on when Zach Tom is going to be back to open the 2026 season. You know, it's a little iffy on if he'll be ready for week 1 following the confirmation that he had a patellar tendon injury, a tear that needed surgery in the offseason. So right off the bat, you know, almost certainly, but I would be absolutely gobstopped if he is back. But I believe that Rasheed Walker will be out the door as a free agent. Please go get us that 3rd round comp pick. That is your penance for absolutely wetting the bed in the second half of the playoff game against the Bears. And Huber just posted a story. I believe it was on Monday. So Monday the 23rd, or maybe a couple days before that. That the expectation is that Elton Jenkins' time as a Packer is done. And, you know, this isn't going to be the episode, but, you know, so many people are going to beat the dead horse of should Good have just left him at left guard, signed Dahlman or another center, all that kind of stuff. Who knows? I do think, right or wrong, they wanted to get younger at the guard spot. And, you know, we can debate on and on if Banks is the right guy for that. But if the intent was to get younger on the interior, they are absolutely going to be younger on the interior, because you have Banks, you have Belton, who is not that much younger than Banks, but still both younger than Jenkins. And you will have, whether it is Sean Ryan on a short-term second contract, whether it is Monk getting his chance to, you know, whether organically or by default getting his opportunity to start at center, or a draft pick, you will have a new center next season. And like I said, the big question mark, and really what is going to drive, I think, how important this position is how healthy is Zach Tom? Will he be Zach Tom when he comes back? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but patellar tendon injuries are one where it's not a great success rate coming off that surgery for bigger guys, for linemen especially. And I know that the Packers, my wife's Chargers, there's a lot of bated breath on how, you know, their top offensive lineman on each roster is going to come back from a patellar tendon issue. And for Packers fans, I do recommend you keep an eye on how Rashawn Slater looks, because that, I don't remember which knee his is in, but he suffered the same. I think his is his left knee, but he's coming off patellar surgery. So, no two injuries are the same. No two players are the same. But in terms of two guys who leverage their athleticism to elevate the rest of their game, I do think it's a good one to keep an eye on to see, how Slater comes back from his surgery. And, because he tore his at the end of preseason, whereas, Tom tore his, week 14, 15, whatever the hell it was. So, the new 17-game slate is throwing off my counting. And, but, Slater obviously has a much longer runway to get back for week 1 than Tom will, but it is a good barometer nonetheless. But all that table setting aside, Brian, how big of a need do you see O-line being for the Packers heading into this draft?
It's always a big need. I mean, they haven't really addressed it too much recently, other than, like Belton last year, of course, and stuff like that. And, of course, it's the NFL. It's always going to be a need. There's never enough good O-line. There's never enough good, tackles, guards, depth. Every team is always looking for, at the very least, more depth and stuff. So it's going into every draft. It's a need every year, basically, one way or another.
Yeah, and what makes this one really interesting is like I said, I know a lot of people will kind of twitch their eye at but they've just drafted Morgan. They just drafted Belton. Well, Belton's playing guard. It was promising for Morgan in the preseason. And I know a lot of people ragged on him for how he played down the stretch at right tackle. But again, I say, I've never been a big fan of the Morgan pick. You and I were both Guyton guys back in 2024. And at the same time, I do have to back Morgan a little bit in how he played at right tackle down the stretch this season, because it's basically for him in the NFL, he's got to either hack it at left tackle or he's got to learn how to play center. That's his frame, his arm length. That's basically what it's going to be for his play style. He's got to be a left tackle or he's going to have to figure out how to play center. I do have to give him credit for he's out of position at right tackle. It's a position that he's not built for. He's never played before. Everyone puts the microscope on the play that got Malik Willis injured at the end of the first Chicago Bears game. But it's he was always going to have problems with guys like Sweat. And there's always going to be the chance where if he's not on time, on target with his technique and hand punch, he's going to get embarrassed by guys like that. And unfortunately, it happened kind of thing. But otherwise, I'm hey, the effort level was that high, compete was high. And I honestly, I was tweeting it from the first play of the second half of the playoff game. Walker was so bad. LaFleur calls a shot play out of halftime, and Love can't even get to the check down because Walker can't read a cornerback cat blitz. And he biffs it so bad. And then the whole second half, he's just a disaster out there. And I was you're at the point where, and I hate doing musical chairs during a game, but I was Walker was so bad that you had to do it. You just had to do it. And so I'm ready to see what happens. But suffice it to say, even without the Tom injury, they needed a swing tackle anyway. Because as of this point, it's Brant Banks, Dalton Cooper, and
Kennard.
Kennard's a free agent, yeah. So
but he's restricted. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Do you think they put do you think they put the same round tender on him, right? Even though he was a what do you think they do with him on that one?
Oh yeah, they're gonna keep him for sure.
Yeah.
Even though he's not great, and he's not a starter. You don't let decent offensive linemen walk away. So
yeah,
and he's okay. He can play.
And especially with I know this is going into a little bit of a different position, but with Tucker a little uncertain, and you did have success with that 6 O lineman look late down the season. yeah, it would behoove them to bring back Kennard in that regard. But how do you feel like, so I know that we're doing O-line, but within this position group, there are really like, three subgroups within this position room. How do you rate how hot is each subgroup for you in terms of need for the Packers?
Well, I mean, obviously center, but that's kind of more depending on like what are they going to do in the offseason. Are they going to bring back Sean Ryan? Are they going to bring in a free agent? Are they going to move somebody over? Are they going to move? Oh, well, chance of it happening is basically zero. But are they going to say, for example, move Zach Tom over? Like, so it depends on what their plan is and what they want to do. If everything stays relatively same, though, of course they need a starter. So I mean that's that. It's need number one basically at center. After that, of course, would be tackle because you need a swing tackle. It's more important than anything else, especially how the Packers cross train their guys. Your swing tackle is probably going to be your first guy off the bench regardless. So I mean you're going to want like a swing tackle who could chip in a guard too as well, at least preferably. So yeah, I would say like center, of course, is number one need. And of course, like I said, depending on what they do, if they sign in a free agent or if they move somebody over or something like that. And then after that, we tackle, and then they just need some depth at guard as well because there's not much there on the roster as far as guard after the starters.
Yeah, and I do think Banks was a lot better after he got healthy. Like he was dragged down by like the perception of what his contract was versus the player he was prior to Green Bay and stuff. And it didn't help that he was dealing with like 4 injuries by the time week 3 came around and stuff. But I did think his play came up as he got healthy as the season went along. And the advanced stats don't like Belton, but they did get movement created on the interior once he was inserted into the starting lineup. And it's one of those where it's like you can have the stats and stuff, but I feel like interior O-line play, it's such a collective item that, whereas with tackle, it's like you can isolate more easily like how a left tackle or a right tackle is playing. Like it's very easy to say like Zach Tom is an elite player when he's at his best kind of thing. And Bakhtiari was an elite player when he was at his best. With interior play, there's so much exchanging, handing off assignments, things like that it's like how much of it is, and the grading systems, some of them are getting better, PFF is not, but they still haven't. It's hard to identify like how much of a stunter is getting through to the quarterback is one guy's fault as opposed to the second guy's fault, because it's like, did the first guy hand off too soon? Did the second guy pick him up quick enough? Did who? It's the whole like who hung who out to dry kind of thing and stuff. Right. So yeah, it's really hard to identify that. But you're right. Like you just pop open what the Packers depth chart looks like, and it's the how much do you believe in John Williams and Travis Glover, Donovan Jennings, like so I agree. But as far as like hot pressing items, I do think that the swing tackle, and then like you said, what are they going to do with center? Do they sign someone in free agency? Do they draft someone high? And it's a little hard to tell with center because like what's it? Lindsley was a 5th round pick. Yeah. And I know he wasn't expected to start as a rookie, but you can get, if you've got the guy with who's got it between the ears, they can come in and play center well as a rookie. Like it's because you can help, because you can get a lot of help from the guards, from backs and blitz pickup and things like that. You can succeed with a rookie center. It's the tackle spot where I don't know, this draft has been described by a lot as there's a lot of talent if you're willing to look, but that like those guys who are ready to like contribute right away, they're a little far and few between, and especially with no 1st round pick, it's a little tough for the Packers this year. But
Yeah.
At 52, who are the guys that entice you as realistic options for the Packers?
Nobody? No, just kidding. It's weird here. Whoops. Whoops. Just being weird here. I was trying to pull my board. Whoops. Whoops. Sorry. Well, anyway. So I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know about there being a center's worth 52. Obviously, Connor Lew's kind of seen as like the top guy, but he's coming off the ACL tear, of course. I don't see the Packers going to season with a rookie starting center who's coming off an ACL tear, who's, he may miss the first few weeks or whatever the season. I mean, he tore his ACL like week 8, I think it was. So, I mean, he's had some time, but it just, I don't think like I said, I don't think they're going to the season with a rookie coming off an ACL tear who's going to miss the first few weeks. It kind of doesn't, they're going to want somebody going in there who can kind of hit the ground running, so to speak, if they do draft someone high. So, I don't think they would take Lou. And then I don't really think there's anybody else worth the pick at 52. So I think, I don't think they'll take an offensive lineman that early, unless like a tackle drops them and then they want to move Tom to center or something like that. It doesn't seem like they want to do that. I mean,
they're going to want him to prove he can't play tackle before they move him back. It really does feel like it. Yeah,
and I mean, like since they drafted him, I've been a Tom should be playing center guy anyway. But obviously, Goody's had all this time, and and LaFleur, and they've never moved him over. They even said no, we're not moving him at tackle. They're moving him to gut center. He's good. He's a tackler. He's our target tackler, or whatever. So, I mean, there's that. So we know that's not happening. So yeah, they're kind of basically stuck there. So I mean, could they take a tackle at 52? I don't think so either. I mean, could there be a guy worth a pick there? Possibly. Like if say like a Blake Miller from Clemson fell there, he would be. I would be okay with them taking him there. Or if he magically fell there, I mean, would he be worth it? Yeah, I don't know if he'll be there either though, because tackles always get that extra boost to their stock, because if you're tackling, you can play in your athletic, you go usually like half a round earlier than you should have gone, or your grade is, or an hour a round earlier or whatever, and there's always a run of tackles and stuff. So
especially in a draft class that's kind of lacking at the other premier spots. Like this is a weird corner draft, this is a weird receiver draft kind of thing. So it's like, you're right, like tackle is always, no matter what, everyone needs tackles. And so that's a position that gets sort of artificially elevated throughout the process, because it's like, I don't know about this corner or that receiver or this edge rusher, but we'll just take this offensive lineman and we'll see if we can make it work within our system, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it just because, like I said earlier, there's just always a need for good offensive linemen in the NFL. So, and especially recently, the offensive line classes in general haven't. I mean, last year's was pretty good, but like in general, just they haven't been great, like the tackles, so to speak. So, yeah, like I said, that would be the only offensive lineman I would think they would draft on date second round. Sorry. So I think 52. It's just like I said. It's yeah. I'm just looking at my boards. It's pretty unlikely they take an offensive lineman at 52 unless, like I said, unless somebody falls to them, something weird happens or whatever, or they have some like plan that like us as fans, we don't know that they're going to move somebody here, move somebody there, or do something like that, or make some sort of trade or something like that, trade somebody away or something weird like that, or trade up in the draft or something like that. But even then, I don't think that's going to happen either. So I think likeliest we're looking at like third round at the earliest for any sort of offensive line pick.
And leading us there, who would you have your eye on, or who are you hoping weighs in a little funky or doesn't run super well that will last a little longer into that third round window?
As far as that, probably nobody. As far as like, that's because the 40 off the lineman's not really important, especially when it comes to Green Bay. Of course, they're not going to draft somebody who runs like a 5.5 40, but of course, we talked about it before. The Packers, they like agility and stuff like that, the agility drills, and then decent explosiveness drills, of course, and stuff like that. So I mean, but still, if you're talking about day 2 guys, and you're talking like if they're looking for a starting center, a guy that can be looking at is Matt Goldman from Michigan State. Probably one of the better centers. He's probably more of a what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of more of like a Ted Thompson center. He's not huge. He's like just under 6'4", 316, a little bigger, but not humongous. But like just that athletic mover guy, not humongous. Again, like I said, a tiny bit bigger, but like not. He has 316. He was verified 316. Arms are the 32 and a quarter inch arms, so kind of average-ish center arm length. But he's a pretty good center, and he has experience at guard too. I played at Wake Forest too, of course, before Michigan State. So, and I like this film a lot too, especially a lot better at center than at guard. So, again, like I said, that's a guy that hasn't been getting much talk as far as when it comes to Packers and drafting a center. Other players are getting a lot of talk, like Brian Parker and stuff like that. From Duke, who's tackle, who's going to move to inside to center, who is not as good as the last Duke tackle that was projected to center. Not going to go as high, not as physically talented, not as strong, stuff like that. But probably still another guy to keep an eye on. So, but if you're looking day 2, like I said, yeah, probably Goldman, maybe Brian Parker again. Like I said, Brian Parker II from Duke. Not much else as far as centers that I think that worth day 2 picks that would fit with the Packers. I know some people talked about like Brailsford, but he's probably way too small for them. He's gonna be. I mean, he was listed at 6'2", 290, but he's probably gonna come out to be like 6'1", 280 or something like that, 285. He's way too small for Green Bay. Of course, we already mentioned Lou, probably not going to be a Packer just because of the injury and stuff like that. They're going to need someone right away. But yeah, as far as day 2 guys, that's mostly it. Most of it's a deep center class, but it's not strong at the top. So I feel like you're going to see most of them go on day 3 or late day 2. So it's basically, yeah. So if you're talking about like 3rd round, you're looking at Goldman, Parker II. And I think the rest of the centers, you're going to see like day 3. So day 3, like those type of guys. But then if you're looking for like a tackle, for like a swing tackle, 3rd round, a guy I like who hasn't got much press that I think will have a good combine, and we'll start probably getting talked about more, through the week and through the offseason and stuff like that. Corey Robbins II from Arkansas State. He was their left tackle. He transferred over from Georgia Tech. So he went from like, a team that basically never passed the ball, was like a lot of RPO, to another team that kind of ran somewhat similar offense, but excuse me, there was more of a true NFL style passing game at least at Arkansas. So he's a pretty good player. Like I said, I think he just playing Arkansas, and they had a bad year, so he's basically got no talk. He's kind of like an old school Packers tackle. Just under 6'5", 300 pounds, but he has 34-inch arms. He should test pretty well athletically. Not a freak, but should test pretty well athletically. And he could probably play some right tackle. You could probably do some guard too as well. He's not super powerful, super strong, but he's a really good pass blocker. He's a decent positional type blocker as far as a run blocker. So, if the thing is true as far as the Packers want to go bigger, he might not be their type per se, because he is barely 300 pounds. But that's at least the theory of them wanting to go bigger is still just a kind of a theory right now, just because the only bigger guy they drafted recently that was the bigger guy is Belton. So it's kind of like just a theory right now. But another tackle they could take on day 2, Jude Barry from Boston College. Again, another little bit bigger guy, just under 6'5", 315. Not particularly super athletic, but he's athletic enough. 34-inch arms, of course. Could play some left tackle at the next level. Probably going to be more of a right tackle, but could probably fill in like swing tackle type of stuff. J.C. Davis, another type of player that they could draft. He's gotten talk about playing guard as well, or probably having to move inside to play guard. But he played pretty well at the practices, at least the Senior Bowl and stuff, that, and he had a better year especially towards the end of this year versus like 2024 and earlier in the year. So again, another guy who could play tackle, could play some guard too. He has a lot of experience too. He was a 6-year guy. Redshirt senior, 6'4", 335. So he's a bigger tackle, but has the length. Again, another guy with over 34-inch arms. So he's got the length as well that the Packers like. But as far as day 2 guys, it's probably about it. I don't think they drafted guard on day 2 unless they move on from Banks, but I don't see that happening. So I think you're looking for day 3 for any sort of guards that they draft.
Yeah, and like I see people throw around the like move on from Banks. We already pointed out you're definitely replacing 2 starting O linemen. You don't know the status of Tom, so that's potentially 3. And no matter how disappointing or not disappointing you want to argue Banks' 2025 season was, if you're expecting to contend for a Super Bowl, you're not replacing 3 to 4 starters week 1 of that season, especially when Love established that he is an elite starting quarterback and I think was still second in playoff touchdown passes despite playing like 1 game or something. It was that absurd stat where he was tied for the lead going into the Super Bowl, and it's like Jordan played 1 game kind of thing and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's like they're just not gonna you're not gonna open holes in the side of the ship at this point that you don't need to. They have enough questions that need to be answered. It'd be one thing if Morgan was rotating in at left tackle and if Tom was healthy, but because you don't have that many answers or previewed answers to the test, like you need as many. I know some people are gonna roll their eyes, but like Banks is a sure thing. Like the base of what you're gonna get out of him,
right?
And do you want better play from him? Obviously, yes, we do. If you're a fan of the Packers, you want him to play better. And at the same time, it's like if you're getting league average-ish play from your starting left guard, you can live with that as you figure out the rest of your O-line. And so, yeah, it is a matter of, I think, Banks is a 2027 conversation. Any conversation now, it would have to be something off-field for them to get rid of him at this point. But moving on to day 3, which I always kind of felt like you've kind of touched on loosely, based on how this draft class is structured, based on the fact that the Packers have no first-round pick, it always felt like it was going to be a Gutekunst day 3, like loading at the offensive line position, unless, like you said, unless one of the like top like you said, like a Blake Miller just slipped through the cracks and happened to fall to 52. He would be like the one guy that I'm like, if he fell to 52, I could definitely see him being the pick. If he even makes it to 45, he's one of the few guys that I could see them being like, maybe we move something around to like go up and get him kind of thing. Just because there aren't, like I said, there aren't many tackles. And this is also like, if Zach Tom was healthy, I don't think I wouldn't have an inkling that they would move up for a tackle that's in range. But because Tom is something of an unknown, they are going to be a little more aggressive in terms of looking for a third, possibly second tackle, just because you just don't know what Tom is going to be coming off that injury. Day 3, diamonds in the rough. We are shaking away. Who are we shaking away for, Mafi?
Yeah, we're shaking the tree, trying to find something to fall out, right? some sort of ripe fruit falling out of the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we mentioned before in other podcasts I mentioned before. Just if follow the draft, if you've been watching, just the podcast, just not even obviously ours specifically, but just any of them talking about the O-line draft class this year. It's at the top. It's pretty weak for the most part as far as for like those blue chip guys. There's like maybe 2 blue chip tackles in this class, maybe if you kind of squint a little bit, and then even after that, the kind of mid, how do I cut it? The day 2 depth is not great either. But once you get to day 3, there's some guys. I mean, they're not. You're not looking at like guys to be starters as rookies, but guys who have at least some size, some talent, some length, and stuff who can play in the NFL. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of tackles that are going to project to move inside, as this happens like every year, of course, every draft class. There's going to be a bunch of college tackles that project to move inside. So just on a quick aside, it's a pretty decent guard class, just again, because there's a bunch of tackles that are projecting inside. But as far as day 3 tackles that kind of fit the Packers thresholds and kind of fit like a need and stuff like that, kind of fit what they look for, kind of generally as far as what we know, because obviously the combine's just starting. Workouts will start tomorrow, but tomorrow will be like D-line, specialists, and I think one other position. I think tight ends. But as far as guys, that we have official measurements on, verify whether over the summer from like Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl or whatever, day 3 guys to keep an eye on. A guy that I kind of like, he might have to play some guard, but I think at the very least, if he can show you can stick a tackle, at least you can give him some depth. He can give you some depth at guard. Sorry, you can teach some guard. Is Alan Heron from Maryland? He's a player that people don't really know very much about. He got an invite to the combine, but he played at Shorter University. If I know most people don't know where that is or ever heard of that school. He played at Shorter a couple of years ago, but then transferred over to Maryland last 2024 for the 24-4 season. And so he's been their right tackle the last 2 seasons. And this year was his best season, of course, his final season. He's sorry, I lost my spot. Oh, there. So he's just under 6'5". He's 321 with over 34-inch arms. Interesting background. He went to high school in Jamaica. He was born in Jamaica, and then came over to the U.S., went to high school in Georgia. So he's still kind of learning. He's still kind of new to football to an extent. So there's obviously going to be some growing pains there with him, of course, and some learning and some growing and stuff like that. And he could be a swing tackle type of guy to keep an eye on. But again, mostly right tackle experience. So we'll see if he can play left tackle or at least learn left tackle to be a swing tackle type of guy. Another guy who's kind of probably not going to be a Packer, but at least a guy will get some talk. I put it, who will probably get put with the Packers by fans and some podcasts and stuff like that, just because he's probably going to test super well and stuff like that. People are going to automatically just assume, oh, that's a Packer. Is Demetrius Cronover from Texas A&M. He's like a former tight end, like in high school. And I think when his first year at Texas A&M, he might have played some tight end. But he's a former tight end, but he's like 6'7", 331. So he's a lot bigger than the Packers like. So he's probably not going to be their type. But still, he's have 35-inch arms. But he's going to get some talk, but probably not really one of their types. Another guy, he's a name guy, but his NFL upside is probably not as high as people will think it is, just because he's a name guy, is Austin Barber from Florida. He's been their left tackle for a while, but there's still some technical flaws in there, and there's some athletic limitations there. But he's a guy who probably can come in and probably be a swing tackle, give you some reps. If you have an injury goes down, come in and start for a game or two at left tackle or right tackle. 6'6", 318 with 33 and a 3/4-inch arms. Decent athlete, but again, a little stiff and stuff like that. But could come in and give you some snaps and give you some depth and stuff like that. And of course, has a lot of playing experience, obviously. Some more guys like another guy, Tristan Lee from Clemson. Another guy might have to move inside, but could potentially give you some tackle depth. He was their left tackle for the last number of years. He was actually the guy that caused, for whatever reason, made Blake Miller the right tackle. Blake Miller was a better athlete. He's a better athlete. For whatever reason, they put Tristan Lee at left tackle, but Lee probably should have been the right tackle. But again, like 6'4.5", 300 pounds, 34-inch arms, former 5-star, but again, not probably didn't play up to that. Not athletic, or what's the word I'm looking for? His upside is not what you normal like a 5-star. People see a 5-star and they think, oh, he's a super freak athlete. Lee's not, but he can play some. Again, you probably have to learn some guard and stuff. Some other guys, let's see who they could be looking at for tackle depth. Jaden Williams from Ole Miss. He's been their right tackle for the last number of years. 6'4.5", 310, 33.25-inch arms. Good athlete, but played in that kind of weird, funky Ole Miss offense where there's a lot of RPOs and stuff. So didn't have a super lot of true pass sets where you could really like dig into the meat and bones and stuff. I watch him, 45 degrees set and sit there and take a normal NFL style pass pro rep. But he's still got some talent, stuff like a guy you can look at. So another good day 3 guy. Some more day 3 guys I like. I think there's potential there again. Another guy. He's going to need a lot of work. Technically, athletically, I think he's okay. I think he should test within the Packers threshold range. But James Neal III from Iowa State, he's definitely one of those first off the bus type guys you see. He's huge. I shouldn't say he's huge, but he's a little under 6'5", 322 with almost 34-inch arms. And if you look at him, he's got this huge dude with these huge muscular arms. He just looks like a WWE wrestler almost, kind of coming off the bus. One of those type of guys. Again, not like, again, there's a reason he's going to be day 3 guy. A bunch of technical flaws you see on film. He's going to need some work, of course. Like I said, he's athletically, he's not great. He's not going to test freaky. There's some athletic limitations there in film. You're probably going to have to teach him some guard. He may long-term be better at guard, but I think he can play some tackles. So another guy that I think to keep an eye on him, day 3, developmental type guy that I think the Packers tend to like, those developmental type guys that they take the dart throw, okay, well, he's athletic. Let's see if maybe we can develop him. And if he can't play tackle, at least we can kick him inside the guard and he can at least be a decent guard. So yeah, there's still just a lot of guys who probably are like more guards or like not really fitting their Packers thresholds. Or they're like, because the Packers don't like their guys really tall. They, 6'6" is based on the limit.
And like for people who ask why you don't want a tackle to be too tall, because like, yes, it's good to be like big, so it's more like you take up more space and stuff. But just think of it this way: like the taller you are, the harder it is for you to change direction, mirror, match opponents and stuff. And the Packers like taller edge rushers, but a lot of teams are okay or like the 6'1" to 6'2" edge rushers who dip, rip, and get under offensive linemen. And if, there's one Joe Alt who functions well at 6'8" and can move like a 6'4" guy kind of thing. Right. Just because there's one Joe Alt doesn't mean every 6'8" guy is. They're more likely to be like a Mims for the Bengals kind of thing. So that's the Packers philosophy. Doesn't mean that they ignore every 6'8" guy. It's just that if you're going to be on that extreme of the threshold, it's like they've got to see the other movement or technique skills to sort of mask you being an outlier in that build. And then you've kind of hinted at it. There's all this talk about them getting bigger on the offensive line, yada, yada, yada. But yes, they've drafted guys that they've announced as tackles during the draft, but none of them have stuck at tackle so far. Like Glover's gone inside, Belton's gone inside. He was okay when they like absolutely needed him to play some tackle this year, but it didn't take long for them to be like, yeah, he's a guard kind of thing. And it's just because it always sounds so good in theory. Like we're going to put this 330-pound mauler out there who's just going to be able to, just eat up a defensive end in run blocking and be not stout, but be athletic and big enough to just like make them run the arc wide enough that Jordan has enough time. But it's like, the problem is that they still do some West Coast stuff, but all year you hear how this offense wants to be a deep shot offense, big play offense. Love takes the deepest drops per average. JT O'Sullivan always comments how like if you think a certain route is a 5-step drop, the Packers are going to do it at 7. If you think it's a 7, they're going to do it at 9 kind of thing. And it's part of the reason why Love like leads the league in like yards lost per sack is just because he likes to take extra deep drops. And what you artificially create there is more natural pass rush angles for the defensive ends. And therefore your tackles have to be able to hold up on an island. And that's why, like I said, if you can find the unicorn at 330 plus who moves like a ballerina dancer, cool. The problem is those kind of guys are usually gone by the time the Packers are drafting in an average draft with a first-round pick. And then especially in a year where they're down to 52 kind of thing. So that's the one side of it. And then, as Brian's been mentioning, like these day three guys who need technique work, bodies need an NFL strength and conditioning program, questions about positional fit. You look at some of the guys, like, I know I've been ragging on Rashid, but like Rashid was a 7th round pick because it was like, is he really an NFL tackle? His technique needs a lot of work and stuff, but
he was coming off an injury too.
Was that?
He was coming off an injury too. He had like a foot injury.
Right. So he didn't even test at the combine. That's right. But like you look at what the way they just redshirted him for all intents and purposes as a rookie, and he became basically a 3-year starter that. Like I said, I don't want them to bring him back because you've seen the limits of his ceiling. But if he goes and earns the Packers a 3rd-round comp pick, you just turned a 7th-round pick into a 3rd-round pick. And that's making money as an NFL GM these days. Even with Bach, it was like, okay, you drafted this, he went to the 4th round because it was like, he moves like a tackle, but is he really going to stick at tackle in the pros because he's at the combine at 299, and he joked all the time that it's like, if I was 6'5", everyone would have been fine with me being a tackle, but because I was 6'4.5", everyone was like, oh, he's a guard, and he's like
center,
or center and stuff. And hey, I'll admit I was guilty of that at times and stuff, but like it is those sort of like island of misfit toys, and with the Packers, like that's why Goot and Thompson would just take a boatload of them because, within a singular draft, sometimes you find John Runyon Jr. who becomes like a 4-year starter for you. And other times you get, the former Oregon center who just never could hack it at the NFL level. The one that they took this draft. The name is just absolutely escaping.
Yeah, I know you're about. Yeah, he was a really bad athlete too. So
or you take a chance on the Indiana guard who was coming off the torn ACL and he just never could get back from the injury and stuff. And along the way, like everyone would be like, okay, they're really only hitting 500 on these old linemen, but I'm like, he's only hitting 500, but like that's really fucking good. Like you're getting, in the span you filled out 4 out of your 5 starting spots with non-first round pick linemen. That's what Thompson did. And then Gutekunst, to a lesser extent, he found Rashid. Jenkins wasn't a first round pick. Myers' return on investment, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, Tom is his shining star out of all of his draft classes at all line. Yep. But it's just why, like you said, the Packers have their thresholds because they believe with their coaching, and we're not even going to get into that debate today, but they believe within their system, within their coaching structure, that if you get this slew of talent, they'll be able to crank out a professional offensive lineman who's a starting caliber with more upside than met the eye in the draft process. So that's always been their theory, and more times than not, it has worked in their favor. And, like I said, that's part of why it was a bit of a disappointment in terms of, how this past season worked out and stuff. But injuries really did just bite the team harder than anyone could have expected them to. And then on top of it, you had we'll never get the full story on why the determining factor was to move Jenkins inside. Was it the get bigger on the offensive line? Was it getting younger at the guard spots? Those are, I joke all the time. Charles Barkley quote, all good until the book comes out one day. We'll never know. But it really is going to be an interesting draft. I do agree. Like, overall, I wish there was there always could be a universe in this draft where Miller falls to them at 52 and it's like, okay, cool. Like they've got he probably wouldn't start this season, but I mean, if he just pushes Morgan in training camp, that's a win. Like you just have a full on training camp battle between the two of them. That's a win in my book. Or if one of the top center prospects just happens to fall in their lap in the 3rd round, that's a win for them too. Or those of us who still have our Jacob Monk lottery picks, and if it all just happens to come together in year 3, like, so be it, kind of thing. So, you know, I know that they've started to like bend their threshold. You know, Belton's older and bigger. Morgan had the short arms and things like that. But for the most part, they've tended to stay within their thresholds. And like I said, the bigger tackles have all moved to guard after, you know, within a year after they drafted them, they've all ended up at guard. So, you know, we'll see how it continues. You know, if they keep trying to take bites at that apple in the future, we'll see how that goes. But I think the proof is in the pudding that based on how they play, what they ask of their tackles, LaFleur does come up with really good pass rush or pass blocking schemes in terms of how he assists his tackles. But there is always a point where it's like, I need you to man up and block your guy. Like he can come up with the perfect help between like putting a tight end to one side, the back helps to the other, whatever kind of thing. You know, having Chris Brooks is a cheat code and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, your tackles have to be able to block man on man. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We're going to bring back an old favorite. Anyone that you would just throw your hat in the air in disgust if the Packers took him at 52, Kaden Proctor. But anyone else,
yeah,
that would be the ultimate in they are going bigger at the position. And to which I'd be like,
no.
I've seen speed bumps do more, but would like outside, like who would be your I can't believe they took that guy pick?
Yeah, it would be Proctor because it just. I mean, it's not even just the size thing. It's just like his film wasn't very good this year either. So it's like
he just doesn't move. Like that's the thing. Like the technique is bad, and he just like there's like what's it called? Like Flozell Adams. He knew how to leverage his size and length to become like harder to get around. Like you see guys who know how to properly leverage that, but then like you see guys like Proctor who are like, yeah, I'm big, and it's like you're gonna jump set, you're gonna like take more than 2 steps out of your stance kind of thing on a play that's not where you're catching the ball. Like, yeah, it's like the only plays he moved more than like 2 yards off of his inline blocking position was when he was a target in the pass game. So yeah, it's like,
yeah, there's rumors all over the place about his weight. There's rumors he's played close to 400 pounds. There's rumors that, I mean, at least in previous seasons, not this season, but there's rumors at least this season he played like in the 370s. There was rumors he played in the 360s. There are some rumors at the end of the season he was in the 330s. So there's just like these weird rumors that are kind of all over the place about his weight. But like, you just watch his film this year, it just wasn't very good. He played worse this year versus last year, and even last year he was probably playing heavier than he should have been playing. Yeah, it's just he needs to lose a lot of weight. I've been saying it. He needs to be playing in like the low 330s, high 320s. And I mean, the funny thing too that reminds me of what you just said when you just said about the jump sets. There's some people who think he's just going to be a guard in the NFL. That he should move to guard. I mean, he's listed at 6'7", so he may be 6'6", and you're just kind of like a really tall guard. I mean, his film's is not great. I mean, this year. I think he can play tackle. I mean, for sure. But just like I said, he just needs to get down his weight down to the high 320s and stuff like that. And he needs like basically a quote unquote redshirt year, get the weight down, work on his technique and stuff like that, get a really good O-line coach, and you can probably be a solid right tackle. I think that's what you'd be able to get out of him. But yeah, that him. And then if they drafted Markel Bell, I would just throw my hands up and be like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah, like my whole thing with Proctor is like, if you got him round 5 or later, which I think some team is gonna just take him in day 2 because the physical tools and the name and where he went to school and all that kind of stuff. Like if he somehow slid down, even to 4, I would be okay with it, because it's like there's no pressure on him to like be a day 1 starter or anything like that. And like you said, like he just needs like an NFL program, And I don't know if you can do the old school, like, we're going to fine you for like every like 5 pounds you're over the contract weight and stuff like that. I don't know if you can do that anymore. But yeah, like, and then like if you can get Loadholt out of it, you know what the Vikings got out of Phil Loadholt for like 3 seasons, that would be an absolute win. And so that would be one. And yeah, like you said, Bell, I just like we're not an NBA team. Like
yeah. And I mean, yeah, and it's like what's it called? If he can't get his, for lack of a better word, S together at a college program like Alabama, where, you know, especially even college in general, where these coaches are constantly on top of these guys all day. They're with, you know, they know where these guys are at every minute of every day. Basically, when you're going to the NFL, where they don't, where basically everything's on you, is he going to be able to get the weight down? I mean, some guys, for whatever reason, it works out. They go to the NFL and they figure it out and they get their stuff together and they do good, you know. But the odds are not good as far as like looking at the history of guys that come into the league with weight problems, getting their, like I said, getting their S together and getting the weight down and getting in shape and staying in shape. That's, you know, you'll see guys, they'll drop the weight for the combine and they'll get in shape when they come in the NFL draft. And even as like a rookie, they'll be in decent shape. And then after that, they just balloon and then they disappear, you know? So it's, you know, you see all the time. I mean, my, what was his name? I'm bringing his name. My favorite example is, oh God, the
team.
Aaron Gibson. I know I had his name on the tip of my tongue. Aaron Gibson. He came into the league at the combine. I remember when he took the combine. I don't have the numbers on me exactly, but I remember that he was like in the, I want to say like 370, 375, something like that at the combine. Maybe it was a little bit less, you know. And then he ballooned up and he couldn't keep his weight down, and he was out of the league within, I don't know, I want to say 3 years. So I mean, it's just one of those. Yeah. So it's just one of those things we worry about, those guys that are that big that, you know, and like, again, that goes to also something you mentioned earlier about tall tackles is, you know, it's the knee bend and being able to sink their hips and stuff like that. It's you know, those guys tend to be kind of leggy, and so it's even harder for them to get that weight down.
That's the thing with Alt is like Alt is 6'8", but it's because he has one of the weirdest builds.
He does. He has a long torso.
He has like the legs of a 6'4" guy, and which is why he can move, kind of thing and stuff. And yeah, his torso, and that's why it was hard for me to watch film because I could never, like, I don't want to say take him serious, but he looked cartoonish because his torso looked so like it was the whole meme of like every 50 likes the hat gets bigger kind of thing. But you just like every time someone's like, oh yeah, look at this tall tackle, I'm like, just put his tape next to Joe Alt's and it's not going to be the same. Like you cannot say because Joe Alt is the unicorn that all those other guys are chasing, kind of thing and stuff. So
yeah. Joe Alt's like the offensive lineman of what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. The swimmer that won all the gold medals.
Phelps. Yeah.
Phelps. Yeah, he's like the Phelps of offensive line because Phelps had that really long torso. He's like the Phelps of offensive line.
Yeah, with the funky wingspan too and stuff like that. So yeah. Oh, let's do this one. Who is gonna? You know, you kind of brought it up. Who is gonna be your? Who is gonna be on your all combine Ozempic squad?
You mean needs to go on Ozempic?
No. Who's gonna just do it for the? Who's gonna do it for
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, well, like I said, Proctor probably is one of them. Because, like I said,
if he shows up at 337, I'll be. Everyone's gonna be like, "What did you take?"
From some of the chat groups I'm in, there's guys who've heard rumors, but again, it's rumors that he's down in the 330s. So again, that we'll see. He could be one of those ones. I'm just trying to look at my board real quick, think who I could do it. I mean, I think Markel Bell could be one of those guys, but I think it was the Shrine Bowl or Senior Bowl he was at. You know, he dropped some weight from the summer. I think he was in the 360s. He was 358 recently. So, you know, he could be a guy that could show up at like 335 or something like that. You know, I don't think it's going to help his athleticism or whatever, but he could be one of those epic guys. I just look at my board here real quick, trying to see who else. Michael Pettis. could be a guy, Michael Peters from Florida State. He was originally at Ole Miss. He was 346. I wouldn't be surprised him showing up lighter weight. I'm just looking over real quick here. Yeah, I think those are kind of the. Actually, that's going to be pro day. An interesting one. Well, it won't be combine. Here's it's kind of a funny one, interesting one. Ole Miss as a tackle, he actually lost his starting job this year, but we have NFS measurements on him as Percy Lewis from Ole Miss. NFS had measured him this summer or spring or whatever at 6'7", but 402 pounds. So what he shows up at his pro day is going to be very, very interesting.
As someone who is under tall, I will not comment, but wow.
Yeah, so that kind of tells you why he lost his job. Because I remember actually going further back last year, I think NFS had weight on him in the like the 370s, I want to say, something like that. So even then, he was a pretty big dude. But he gained even more weight, so that kind of tells you why he lost his starting job. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he just goes on Ozempic and loses tons of weight for the pro day or something like that.
And it does go back to also like we said, we're both not Markel Bell people, but like it's different when a 6'9" guy is 360 to when like a 6'3" guy is 360 too. So like, yeah, there's elements to this. You know, some guys are just big boned, but otherwise, you know, most of them, yeah. Like that's the thing is like I understand wanting to be bigger on the O-line, but it's like the average fan has to understand that bigger doesn't mean you're going to be a better run blocker necessarily either. Like, you know,
usually it doesn't mean slower.
Yeah, unfortunately. Like I said, there's very few 330 plus guys who can move, and that's the thing is like I know LaFleur mixes in like power, you know, he mixes in gap and power schemes and stuff, but the basis of this offense is still off of zone, whether it's inside zone or outside zone,
right? And
that's all about getting to second level, hitting moving targets, all that kind of stuff. And you've got to be able to, whether it's, and you know, the thought theory is that like, okay, you get a bigger guy, so he has a bigger wingspan, so he takes up more space kind of thing. But it's like, you're out of position. That's where holding calls come into play, because you just reach out and you caught grabbing a guy. You're just clotheslining people on the second level. But that's the beauty of the mystery, and that's why we do all of this in terms of like looking into scouting options and position the position players, because we're like, we understand historically who the Packers have picked. Gutekunst has been around. This will be his 9th draft at this point, which is just wild Crazy. To say already. So there's a heap of data in terms of who he's been as a drafter, what he has taken. And I know he's made, going back to the 22 draft in terms of just taking an inside linebacker in the first round, taking an older guy in the first round. But like the times that he's gone against trends have been, I know that he's done them more, but they've been isolated incidents where it's like he's taken one old guy early. He's taken one inside linebacker on day one. He took Cooper the next year in round 2. But it's like, It's not like he's just constantly done it over and over and over again every season. It's like they've been like swing, like, okay, I guess we'll do it again now kind of thing. It's not like he's just repeatedly beat the door in and like, oh yeah, we totally draft differently. So it'd be really interesting to see how they approach it this go around. But suffice it to say, Brian, another fun one, and be sure to invite you back for the day 2 live stream, as we always do. So someone can be on to keep me company. Joe will be there this year because he won't be at the draft like he was when we were trying hopelessly to get internet contact with him last season. But we'll definitely be around to invite you back. Please tell everyone where we can find all your excellent work on the draft and even just your in-season work as well.
Yeah, actually, we didn't get to really centers too much, but let me just do a quick mention of some day 3 centers real quick. I don't know if you have to go or something, but
go for it.
Okay, cool. Sorry, just a quick mention before we get to my bio or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, day 3 centers people to keep an eye on because that's probably where the Packers will draft one. We got Jordan White from Vanderbilt. This is no order, specific order, but Jordan White, Vanderbilt. He's got guard experience. He's a little short, just under 6'2", so and a little under 300 pounds, so might not be their type anymore, but still a guy to keep an eye on. Has guard experience. Started at Vanderbilt for a number of years. Started at Liberty before that too. So has some pretty talented athletic guys, so got to keep an eye on. Sorry, Jagger Burton from Kentucky, another guy who's kind of actually fits their profile in a way of what they're trying to do. He's not humongous guy. He's just under 6'4", 311, but he has that physical Mauler mentality style play to him. And he's got, again, another guy who's got guard experience in starting games of guard, but his center is probably his best position. So could be a potential Packer type guy to keep an eye on. A couple of name guys, of course, Jake Slaughter, but of course, 6'4", 305. Not super skilled or not super athletic, but just a solid guy who will come in, probably be a 8-year starter in the NFL. He would be solid. He's not going to be great, but he'll be a solid guy to, NFL. Sam Hecht from Kansas State, again, kind of like our old school kind of Ted Thompson type of guy. 6'4", just under 300 pounds, 32-inch arms. Really athletic, though. Kansas State is using the puller. And not even just like a puller coming on to like from the center to like the B gap, like all the way to the outside, like on outside zone runs. They're pulling it from center all the way to like outside the C gap, blocking up like the outside, up the
like on a sweep kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like a sweep type thing. I was trying to gather my thoughts there for a second there, but yeah. So he's almost like a better example. Actually, would be he's almost like a Mike Flanagan, more athletically. So he's not going to be playing any snaps at tackle like Flanagan could, but that type of athlete I'm talking about. So even and he actually his anchor is actually for a guy who's just under 300 pounds. Is not bad actually. It's pretty good. There's a few times here and there he'll give up some ground and stuff and get pushed, but he's actually not bad. His frame looks pretty filled out, but he could probably add some weight, add some bulk to help him with that. But
305, get to 305.
Yeah. Another guy kind of like probably not a Packer because his arm's a little bit short for their style, but it's close. Bryce Foster from Kansas, again, not super athletic, but a bigger dude, 6'4", 317, just under 32-inch arms. Another guy who has guard experience, and I think I have to double check. I think he has some tackle experience, but I think it's mostly guard and center. Played at Texas A&M, then came to Kansas. Another guy to keep an eye on day 3. James Brockemeyer, another kind of smaller center, 6'3", 297, almost exact same size as Hecht. Probably on like a slightly tier below Hecht, but not as especially at least as far as athletically. But again, another guy who could come to league. At the very least, he should be a decent backup. But if he becomes a starter, he'd be like an okay starter or some type of thing. A kind of sleeper center I kind of like Nick Dawkins from Penn State. His dad is Daryl Dawkins, the former NBA player.
Oh.
Yeah, so interesting kind of background there. And then like his cousin, I'm looking at my notes here real quick. And Brian Dawkins is his cousin, the Hall of Famer. So he's got the family thing there. So, but 6'4", 309, 33-inch arms. He could. I think there's potential there to develop into a starter. We'll see. Another kind of sleeper I really like actually. He's a Hawaiian kid, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's K.N. DeCambra. It's K-A''E-N. I'm not sure if that's the right way to pronounce it.
Huh.
K-A''E-N. DeCambra. He actually played at Hawaii, then he transferred over to Arizona. He originally was a guard. He might have had some tackle experience. I can't remember. I have to look further into my notes. But again, a guy who was kind of a sleeper. He was coming into when he transferred over from Hawaii to Arizona, he was kind of seen as like probably like a UDFA type guy. But they moved him to center, and he kind of took off as a center.
Kayana, yeah.
Oh, okay, Kayana, there you go. Okay, I wasn't sure of the pronunciation of that. But yeah, so yeah, got to keep an eye on day 3. Could be a potential starting center down the line. So that's a guy to keep an eye on. I think that's a decent list of guys, centers to keep an eye on for his Packers.
Yeah.
But yeah, DeCambra, again, like I said, a day 3 guy you could bring in and, could sit for a year and maybe be started by year 2, year 3.
Yeah.
Is a guy to keep an eye on. And actually, I did want to mention real quick, too, A couple tackles that we didn't get a chance to talk about. That are what would you call it? They would be redshirt type guys, name guys, of course, but redshirts for different reasons. Juice Shelton from Penn State coming into the year, he was seen as probably like a day 2 pick, maybe a day 1 pick, but just had a really bad year this year.
As most of Penn State did.
Yeah, the whole Penn State basically, right? But he still has the measurables, he still has the athleticism, but it's the guy who probably just needs to get put into a better system. Let him sit for a year, let him relearn. Probably needs to add a few pounds. He's 303, so probably has to add a few pounds. But again, guy you bring in, let him sit for a year, let him relearn stuff. Could develop into a starter, of course. Isaiah World, Oregon tackle, just didn't play well this year. Came over from it was Nevada, I think it was. Played well in Nevada, but they came to Oregon and it just didn't work for whatever reason. He couldn't get it out of his own way type of stuff and didn't play well. And then blew out his ACL at the end of the season. So he's going to be definitely a redshirt year. You're probably going to put him on the IR, but again, huge guy, 6'5", 321 with 34-inch arms. And he's a good athlete. We're probably not going to get any testing numbers from him again because he tore his ACL back in January, I think it was. So we're not going to have any testing numbers for him per se, but he's a really good athlete. Again, you're going to bring him in, put him on the IR as a rookie, and then see if maybe as a year 2, year 3, you have.
Sorry, I only chuckled because I'm assuming that your measurement is verified by somebody. NFL.com's pre-combine has him at 6'8".
Yeah, they're taking that off his listed weights at like Oregon or whatever.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's one of those. He looks tall on film, but yeah, I don't think he's that tall. He doesn't stick out above the rest of their old linemen.
No, NFS had him verified 6'5" and 2/8, 321 over the summer. 34-inch arms, so he's got the long arm length. But again, like I said, he's not going to work out. He'll probably measure, and that's about it. You're going to put him in the IR. You're going to basically spend the rookie year in the IR, and then year 2, hopefully see if he can develop, and then maybe year 3 at the worst. But yeah, those are some dart throws, day 3 developmental potential guys like redshirt again, like I said.
And I think that's what you're going to get at both positions. I think, and that's the thing is like the tackles are the more dart throw. Like you're trying to get a Rasheed Walker, you're trying to get oh my God, what's my dude's name? Plays for the Panthers now. Why can't I think of our 10 Raz UDFA that should have started the 2021 playoff game. Oh shoot.
I'm not sure offhand.
But yeah, so you're trying to get guys like that who like have the upside, need, whether it's recovery time or whatever. And yeah, you're just trying to not get Stepaniak, but sometimes you get Stepaniak. And,
sometimes.
Yeah. But that's the thing is like Hansen, that was the center.
Jake Hansen. Yeah.
Like
I always remember the name because the band Hansen, but yeah.
But that's always been my thing. Like I always ascribe to just take the athletes especially when you get into like round 6 or whatever, just take the best athletes at that point. Maybe they won't all learn how to play football, but take the athletes with the upside at least. And like, if they flame out, it's a round 6 pick and whatever kind of thing. But at least take the guys who have a shot at contributing at some point kind of thing. So yeah, Hecht is one that did like that ability to pull on the move is something that like, in 2020 and late in 2019 and especially 2020, when they could run the ball on anyone, they were just deploying Lindsley out. Like he's pulling over a gap and then he was pulling over 2 gaps. And then like, I do think that LaFleur would know exactly how to utilize that kind of movement skill out of his center. And like you said, one of the points you made that, everyone's like, you got to be able to anchor. But like, I think sometimes anchor gets overblown out of centers because people are like, oh my God, he lost the first step off the snap. But I'm like, he's snapping the ball. Like, yes, you don't want your center just getting deposited easily in your quarterback's lap. But it's like centers, I always thought should get an extra step to reset their anchor because it's like, you're not looking at the guy. I know most teams do their different, the Steelers kind of like pioneered the whole like the center doesn't look between their legs thing, but I feel like the Packers are like one of the last teams the center actually looks at the quarterback before they snap the ball, as opposed to a lot of other teams who do like the guard does the like stand up, turn around, and then they do the hand motion for the center kind of thing and stuff. But
Right.
the Packers are one of the last teams that do go. Even Ryan was doing the old school like butt up, look between the legs, and sit back down before snapping the ball thing.
Shotgun, yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that like there's a little bit of grace that needs to be given to guys who, you're trying to do three things off the snap of the ball. It's like, I gotta first make a good snap, and then I gotta re-identify it off, post snap movement, and then I gotta strike. And so it's like, it's the other positions. It's like it's easier to identify who you are, unless your name is Royce Freeman. And so it's like, yeah, like when they're like, oh, he loses the first step every time. I'm like, is he really? Like, it's one thing if he's just getting his ass handed to him every snap, or is it like he is resetting within the next two steps? And I'm like, that's a win for a center. So yeah, there's a little bit more nuance than meets the average eye and stuff. But yeah, you don't want you don't want to be what's it called, the Vikings former center that was just dog meat for Kenny Clark all the time.
Yeah, I know you're talking
NC
about.
State kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of his name right now, but I know you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be like really athletic, and he was, but he would just get bowled over by everybody.
He played like he was 260. Yeah. But no, Brian, thank you as always for having a chock full list of names for everyone to keep an eye on. Only reason I was pushing it is because usually I like to keep your episodes down to an hour, because I know that with your work schedule, we're coming off of your work shift and it's nighty-night time for Brian, but we always appreciate when you're able to hang around with us for a little longer and talk story.
Yeah.
And now into the biography, or into the where do we find your stuff?
Well, actually, one more quick mention though, just for Packers fan, because I know people, they love talking about Iowa guys. Get them out of your mind, at least for this class. Logan Jones, like the chance of him being a Packer is like maybe 2%. He's already smaller, and then he's got sub 31-inch arms. They've never drafted an offensive lineman all the way through center, tackle, guard, any that were under 32-inch arms. Could they go slightly under? Maybe, but like you're talking about, like he's over a full inch under, so it's not gonna happen. Sorry, but it's not gonna happen. And then Dunker, he's gonna be a guard. He's stiff. He's not really their type. I mean, maybe if he slips late, maybe.
But he's going day two. I think because of how this class is, some team is going to take him day two, and it's going to be like 2 rounds higher than another team. He's going to go like 2 rounds higher than Goot would be comfortable drafting him. That's just my impression of it.
Maybe, but I still think it goes early day 3, like 4th round. Goes to some team that doesn't mind if their guard is stiff, but who's a mauler, just like
Baltimore
eats nails. Yeah, right, eats nails, and one of those type of guys. So I think get out of your mind of them either them being Packers or either them basically going day 2. It's
nudge Joe. Nah, I think Joe already he has accepted a little bit of that reality. Like I threw who's the Iowa tight end? He's like, there is none. I was like, oh no, he shot that thing down so fast.
Next year there might be. Next year we'll see. They got a couple young tight ends, but yeah, this year no.
Yep. So.
Yeah.
But like I said, always appreciate you coming on, and now it's your spotlight moment. Tell us where we can find all your work.
Third time's a charm. Yeah, of course. For those who are watching on YouTube, you can see my Twitter handle there, BMAAFI NFL. You know, be listening on just regular audio. I just said it there. So BMAAFI NFL. You can catch me there on Twitter, talking draft and talking Packers. I do both just general draft content and Packers. I'll do some Packers specific stuff. I do cut-ups. I put up clips on my Twitter as well. Just today, I put up a bunch of Monroe Freeling clips, who might be the next, maybe not as good, but Joe Alt type of guy who is 6'7", but like doesn't look like it because he has a long torso. He gets really good bend and really gets good leverage. So he's a guy that probably goes. He's not going to be a Packer because he's going to go way too early, but still a fun player. Fun player to watch. He's a good player. He's a fun player. He adds depth to the class, so that helps, of course. But yeah, then of course I have my Substack.
just look for Brian Maffey. I haven't run anything recently, but I'm getting there. I'm going to start doing my final positional rankings for just the whole draft for, quarterback, running backs, tight ends, linebackers, so on and so forth. And I will do some Packers specific stuff. I will have my Packers specific board I'll put out there. I usually release it publicly probably about 2 weeks before the draft, probably. So just follow me on Twitter there. I'll just release it publicly there. And that'll be my list of all the guys who I think are on the Packers draft board, at least from an athletic standpoint. I'll usually put some notes in there if there are guys who have off-field problems or injury issues that may take them off. But generally, it's just kind of guys who at least athletically fit the Packers thresholds. And I'll break it down by the positions and break it down by specific testing as far as what stuff kind of fits, what stuff is like borderline and stuff like that. So I'll have that. And then, of course, my Substack, like I said. And then I'm on Draft Professors. Just look up Draft Professor every Sunday night of 5 p.m. my time. So it's like 7 p.m. Central Time if you're in Wisconsin, I guess, every Sunday. And then I'll be doing some other podcast appearances here and there leading up to the draft, but that's where I am on at least a consistent basis.
Right on. And yep, like we said, hoping to have Brian back. We always try to reel him in for day 2 when we do the live stream.
We always do.
You'll have at least the 2 of us in your ear if you're following along for the 4 of you that do the live stream. So appreciate having you on again, Brian. Always a good fun talk.
Always.
Yep. So check us out. Follow us on all our social medias at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Search Ohana Packers Edition on Facebook. Please follow us there. We're trying to hit our 100 subscribers so that, when we do live streams like our day 2, we can live stream to Facebook. If we hit that, we're going to start doing drawings for all those followers on Facebook. Sign paraphernalia from this is great radio.
Joe.
That Joe has been able to acquire. That Joe has been able to acquire over the years. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe. And topics, throw them on. Hit Joe, me, hit the social media for the show. We want to create the content you're looking for. Once again, thank you, Brian Maffey, for helping us with our O-line preview. This is another one of our 2026 draft positional previews. Go Pack Go, and aloha.
Packers fans out here to stay. Cheeseheads green and gold all day. Jordan Love lead us to the bay. Every game we find a way. Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for green and gold gonna glow. Lambeau Field, our sacred ground. Feel the vibe, hear the sound. Packers fans so loud and proud. Jordan Love, he's wearing the crown. Lambeau Field, our sacred ground. Feel the vibe, hear the sound. Packers fans so loud and proud. Jordan Love, he's wearing the crown.